what we're going to do to start with is just go through every feature in isolation. So the RMS views that you'll see throughout this will look different because of the way that AdamRMS works with its features. One of the features is that you can give permissions exactly as much as you want or don't want as you go through. So it will look different at each stage that we're showing today. And we'll start with the very basics of signing up, creating accounts, and what you get if you've never done, if you've not got any of the permissions at all set on the RMS. It's going to be a lot of point and click for a bit, and me hopefully not breaking stuff as we go along, because I'm doing a live sign up, which is always a bad idea. This is a separate instance that we've got just for this training. So we've had to remove the Google button because I'm not dealing with the fun of setting up Google for a webinar. But single sign-on is something that AdamRMS does support for a variety of sources. If other groups wish to use it, it can be looked into, that sort of thing. But basically, you just want your account. These are very rough and raking. Since when's a longer username been a requirement? Learn something new every day. So basically, all you've got there is just some basic information about you. All of the specific points should be self-explanatory. And once you've accepted the terms and conditions that are in the corner there, you get a lovely verification email to your inbox that just makes sure that you're a genuine person and not trying to break the RMS, because we don't want lots of random accounts. If we then log in, you get a very blank space because we've not got a business set up yet. One of the first features to talk about is sign-up codes, and we'll look at how we create them later on when we're looking at AdamRMS management. A sign-up code is just an easy way to join a business without having to get an administrator to manually add a person every time they join. So I'm going to use the code sign me up here, and that's going to join our basic instance. As you can see, we're now in AdamRMS with no permissions other than the basics. And what you get with that is the viewing of assets, because that's the kind of fundamental to the existence of the RMS, and a bit about your personal calendar, which will be very empty when you first start because you're not doing any events, and this instance or business doesn't have any other events. But what we can do is look at our account and get our account set up whilst we have nothing else here. A couple of features to point out as we go through. Obviously, you've got things like your username and all of your personal information. Social media is there, so it's easier for people to find you within your business. So you can add your Facebook Messenger, that sort of thing there. Sign in, changing your password if you forget it, if you want to change it at any point. If you forget your password, there's a password reset feature as well that you can use. And then at the bottom here, we have our link to Google, so you can do your Google single sign-on. Makes it a lot quicker to log in than having to remember a password. And then the final most useful feature here is our export calendar. What this does is it takes all of your events that you may have and puts it into a single calendar feed that you can paste into Google or Apple or Outlook, are the ones that most commonly used. And those instructions there should hopefully be able to go you through it. If not, we can point you in the direction of getting some more information about how to get that to work. So that is a whistle-stop tour around your account. Anyone got any questions about anything in accounts or very basic getting started? Because if not, I shall move on to assets. Cool. Log in with the other account. See, I need to do this Cool. So moving on to a slightly more fleshed out AdamRMS business, we've got a couple of assets in here, and assets are kind of the basic building block that make up the resource management system. An asset itself is a physical, or could be software, could be anything like that, an individual item that you have, and each asset is made up of an asset type, and these kind of define what the asset is. And then an individual asset is multiple types, multiple individual things of an asset type. So when we go into the asset search, this brings up our sidebar that allows you to go and look through, filter through your available assets into quite a high level of detail. If you just want to bring up every asset, leave everything blank and just press search, and then you bring up every asset you have available in your business. So we have three assets here, three asset types, sorry, here. And within these asset types, we can go into look at each asset, and then we can see that this asset type has three individual assets assigned to it. That means that we have three physical items of this. So this business has three SQ5 sound consoles. If we wanted to try and find a specific item, first of all, you can start by just typing in and seeing whether that's going to be specific enough to come up. And we've got the XLR cables appeared there. It was the main thing I was looking for, but because the DBR15 has the word XLR in the asset type description, that's also appeared, so that hopefully you might find it assets in a different way than just searching for the title of the asset. Every asset is assigned an asset tag. By default, AdamRMS uses the numbering scheme A- and then a 4-digit number, but you can customize these asset tags to be anything you want. They appear often as IDs within AdamRMS, but as we can see here, so B0004 is an asset that is a DBR15. And then you can link each asset tag to a barcode so that you can scan it using either the AdamRMS app or another third-party service. If we look at asset types again, the asset type, as I said, contains the information about what it is. So you have things like the value of the product, how much you charge if you're doing dry hire rates, and then links to where you can get more of this asset, or if you want to find out more information. One of the very powerful features that AdamRMS has is what's called custom fields. These allow you to provide specific information about an asset type that doesn't necessarily fit under the categories that have already been defined there. For example, we might want to say number of XLR inputs as one of our asset types. I don't know why you'd want to do that for a DBR15 because that's always the same, but if you want to add a new one, we can just type XLR inputs as the custom field title on our asset type. Click save, and then when we edit the individual assets, you'll have an extra data entry for the asset. These custom fields allow you to customize things like tracking lengths of cables, what version of software you might have installed on the computer, things like that, that just give you that extra control over information about your assets. That should make it easier to find the exact asset that you're looking for. The other thing we can do, and we've had it lovely scrolling away in the site here, is add thumbnails to our assets so that we're not just dealing with the idea of just a very simple thing. We've got a physical image that you can match it a bit more easily if you've got lots of similar items. Thumbnails are there, they allow you can upload them to AdamRMS storage that then appear throughout the site. What else do I need to whittle on about? Another feature that you might that's here is useful is linking assets together. What this means is that you have a main asset, and you might have an asset that always has to go out with it. So you might have a specific power supply for an asset that only works with that one, you'd add both of them to the RMS, and then you'd link one to the other so that when you add the first asset, the second asset always goes out with it. We can do this, for example, let's say that we want to link one of our SU5 mixers to this speaker. Let's say that someone's kind of bodged them together or something like that, and so they're one linked asset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for the asset. So I've got this one here. I'm just going to click on it, and when I click save, what that's done is it's linked this current asset to that console, and it tells you that at the top there. And then when I click through to look at this specific asset, it will tell me, well, this one's linked to that. And what that means in terms of projects, which we'll discuss later, is when you add the main asset to it, you also get this asset added to the project at the same time, which should hopefully make it a lot easier to add one. Let's say you've got a flight case with lots of cables and that sort of thing associated with it. You can just add all those to the one asset and they all get added to your project. Cool. Now moving on to looking at adding a new asset to the RMS. The first thing you want to do is check whether the manufacturer of your asset already exists. AdamRMS has a lot of manufacturers already built in, so you should get a lot of them. But your list of manufacturers here shows your manufacturers that you may have added or are using currently in your instance. If you want to see the full list of manufacturers that already exist, we need to go to adding a new asset. First thing here is our full list of manufacturers. If you don't have one, you need to pop back to the manufacturers page and create it first, or you just make it a generic manufacturer for now and you can change it at a later time. I did not plan for a sample asset, so this is really slick of me. So what I'm going to do, instead of finding a specific asset to add, I'm going to add a generic DMX cable, as we don't have any DMX in this instance currently. So instead of a lot of assets like cables and that sort of thing, you won't really care about the manufacturer of them. That's why you've got a generic or unknown manufacturer included in the list. Currently, one of the XLR asset type is a generic manufacturer because we just don't really care where it's officially come from, because then you'd end up with a lot of XLR cables from a lot of manufacturers. We obviously don't want to create an XLR because we're looking at making a DMX cable as an asset type. So instead of doing select that one, we're going to click asset add new type here, and then we've got all the basic fields about this new asset type that we're creating. So I'm going to do 5-pin. As I said, I haven't planned this through, so I haven't actually got a prepared description. I'm going to leave it blank because it's a DMX cable. There's not much more to say about that. All these fields are optional. It means that and anything that you don't fill in, AdamRMS will helpfully tell you you should probably fill this one in. Value, I'm going to say it's £2. It's not a very long cable, and so it's going to be a relatively cheap one. Day rate and weekly rate, these are how much your asset type would be to dry hire, as I said before. General industry practice is 2% for a day of the asset value is your day rate, and your week rate is around 6%. AdamRMS calculates these for you aside here if you want to use them, or you can ignore it completely and put in whatever value you want here. So let's say I want to say it's £10 cable because we really like this one. So it's £10 a day and £100 a week. You can do whatever you want with these values, just make sure it follows your business's pattern. Next up, we have the asset type category. Categories are really useful for you to be able to filter your asset types down so that you know exactly what's what. There are a whole load built into the RMS by default, but you can add custom ones, which we will look at later. This is a cable, so we're going to go down to miscellaneous cables and set that as that. And then we're going to use the definable field to say this is going to be the length of the cable so that we can keep track of how much cable we actually have and what lengths we have available. I've filled in all the information I have about this asset. I'm going to click save. now we've got the asset type selected as DMX cable, and we've got our custom field, the first one here is length. I'm going to put in the length of 2 meters. And then I'm going to click save so that the RMS automatically generates the tag for me. What you can see in the top corner, oh yeah, there we go. You can see in the top corner is it says we've created an asset and this is its asset tag. If I wanted to generate another one, I can just keep clicking the add another button until I've got all the number of assets I want. And if I wanted to add a custom tag, let's say that this business uses the prefix asset and then uses a number. I'm going to do asset 01 as the tag. And instead of it being an AdamRMS generated a number, we now have asset 01 as its tag. If I now go into asset search, what we can see is we've got a brand new cable type, a new asset type here of our 5-pin DMX cable that I can look into. And then assets in here, we can see there's the 3 generated assets, 2 of AdamRMS generated IDs and 1 of the custom one. Does anyone have any questions about that? / anything that I've missed? Cool. Looking now onto asset groups. Asset groups are a way of categorizing your assets in a different way. You might do lots of different types of assets that make up kits or something like that, or you might use this to track when you bought your assets so that you can see your maintenance life cycle and that sort of thing. They're very open, they're not very restrictive at all, and it means that you can use groups however you want to for your business. We're going to create a new group here. I'm going to call this the generic sound setup group. And what this group in my mind is going to be is it's going to be a load of assets that you might take to just get some sound out into a room. So what we've done there is create a group, and now we just need to find the assets that we're looking for here. So I'm looking for one of our SQ5 mixers, one of our, let's take 2 of our speakers, and then I'm going to need some XLR to join them together. So those 2 there. What we've got there then is we've got 5 assets joined as one group. That then you can track that group and see across across the RMS, you've got those together. If you have access to projects in your business, you can also add a group of assets to a project, which we'll look at later. The other way to add an asset to a group is when you're creating the asset. So let's say I've got a new XLR cable here. I can add in the group here. I've got a generic sound setup there. And as you're creating, you might want to add all the assets you've just received into your warehouse or something like that in one go. So you can add them as you're creating the assets, and every asset you create, once you've got a group in there, will automatically be assigned to that group. So we've just created 3 more cables there, and they've automatically been added to our group. The final thing to discuss on assets is asset barcodes. AdamRMS allows you to generate asset barcodes using the system so that you can attach these to your assets. It also supports a wide number of other barcode types. So you could get physical stickers to stick on, or you can print them out using AdamRMS. What I'm going to demonstrate here is a generic, just using the default setup, what sort of thing you might get if you generate barcodes for a load of assets. So let's get a selection of XLR cables to include in this export. So I've got 3 XLR there. And what I'm going to do is just generate the PDF of our barcodes. As you can see there, it's generated a barcode, what the asset ID is, the weight of it, and this is just because I've not set a logo for our business here. We can then use those to attach to our assets. You, for example, either print these on stickers, or what TechSock have done with this is wrap it in plastic so that it's attached to cables. If I wanted to, for example, include what type of asset it is, list the first definable field. So this is used mainly for length of cable. Let's include the business name here, and let's include the AdamRMS logo and not our business logo. Generate those ones, and we should see we've got a lot more information now. We've got a different logo there, but we can see what this asset is, the business name, and that's the information we've requested. Does that make sense to everyone? Any got any questions about groups or barcodes? Cool. Just bear with me 1 second. I've broken something that I hadn't realised I'd broken, which is always fun. Right. Another useful feature of AdamRMS assets is the maintenance tracking. This can be used for any issues that you might have about with your assets, and can be really useful to, especially when you're in a busy period, to say, well, this asset can't be used because it's broken, or this asset could be on its way out, so just be aware and maybe take a spare. Every maintenance job is related to one or more assets. So let's look at one that we've already had in. It's helpfully named It's Broken, which is really unhelpful name from the creator of the job. Key things to look for here is every job can be assigned a person to have to deal with it. So this one's been assigned to me. Flag and block are our two ways of providing information about the job to the physical asset. So a flag will helpfully appear when you in your asset list to say, well, this one might have something wrong with it. And then a block means that the asset cannot be added to a project because it's that broken. You can flag and block or not do either. Using these two in different ways to make it work best for you is recommended. Next up, we have the job priority. These are a set list of values that are there to make sure that your maintenance jobs are prioritized for your business. And these values are from log only to say this is just to let you know that this is a thing you should be aware of, right up to, well, we can't function right now because this asset is broken. You can set a due date so that people are told, well, we need it by this date. It might be for a project or something like that you've got coming up. And other people can keep in touch with what's going on with the job there by adding their user account here. So that I'm going to add Rob to this maintenance job. That means every time there's an update to this job, Rob will get an email as well as whoever's been assigned to the job to say it's changed. To keep track of how far through you are through a maintenance job, you can change the status of it. By default, it doesn't have one, but then you can say either you've received a job or you've closed, or when you finish with it, you can close it by default. The assets that are involved with the job are listed below this, and these will link through so you can click through and see what's wrong with it. And here we can see what it looks like when you've got something that's blocked. You get a lovely red banner to say, well, this is broken. And if we go to the maintenance section of this asset, we can also see what's causing these blocks, and the information's there. Also see, it gives you a list for each asset, which jobs are with it. If you want to keep track of a conversation back in the maintenance, we can include the thread of maintenance history. So you might say things like, we've sent this back to the manufacturer because it's a defect with manufacturing. You might say we've ordered the spare parts. Just keeping everything together in the thread is really useful. You can also see in this timeline here what's happened to this maintenance job over time, just in case you tried to change something and you lost track of who's responsible for it or who originally created it. The timeline's there for that. If we go back to our maintenance overview, we can add a new job to show what that looks like. So let's say that we've got a missing power lead and you can't find a replacement for it. So on the day, so you want to let your equipment team know that they need to look into this. So we've given it a title, and now we can add the assets underneath it. So select this speaker, for example, and then we just need to. It does require a description. I can't think of anything more descriptive than it's just missing at the moment. So yeah, you fill in the basic information, and then that'll create the job for you. This job, it's not that urgent, so it's just a routine job for them to fix because we've got a replacement part there. But I'm going to flag it on the assets so that it's aware that when people are trying to book this one out and we go and look at this asset, we can instantly see, well, this one's missing power leads, maybe take another one, or try and use one of the spare power leads that we might have. Cool. That is a whistle-stop tour through assets. Does anyone have any questions about the asset system, asset types, or maintenance? Cool. Rob, do you want to talk about a project for a bit?
Sure thing. Shall I share my screen then?
Yeah.
If I Cool. So, we're actually going to start with a little bit of sort of project management and how we sort of look at the life cycle of an event. So the first thing that we need to sort of keep track of as a business is all of our clients. So we can add these clients on the clients page. We can see of our current ones. So I've currently got a client called CMS, and I've got a client called Theatre 42. We can see quite easily like how much they've paid and how much they're due to pay in the future. We can see notes on them, and we can look at their addresses if we need to. I can create a new client really easily called I don't know, James's theatrical group, and then I can then go in and edit them, and I can add their address in Westminster with their website, gov.uk or whatever, wherever they might be based in London or whatever. We can add their email and their notes. I'm not going to for now, but you can see that now if I click on the address, Google Maps comes up with a nice little search for Westminster. So I can see that James's theatrical group is clearly based somewhere in London, really easily. The important thing to note on this one is getting the addresses right, because this pops up quite nicely when you're generating invoices, which we'll come on to later. If I go, so then the next bit of the sort of life cycle is you have locations. An event has to happen at a location. It can't just happen anywhere. Locations are again, they show up on the invoices, so it's quite nice to get the addresses right. When I create a new one, we have the option of adding a client to the location. So if, for example, CMS in this case own the a venue that we're looking at, so I don't know, storage. Oh, storage location. We can put in an address of York somewhere, and we can put in a note to say this is just a shipping container. So we can say that it's owned by CHMS. So obviously we wouldn't normally be doing shows in there, but you might do internal events at a storage location if you need to. And you can see here it's created the location. I can click on this and I can see all the events at that location. At the moment, obviously there's none, but I can also see the client is owned by. If I go into the storage location files, I can upload files. So for example, if you've got a default rig diagram or a default sound plot or whatever, or we've put radio mic frequency diagrams for the particular venues in here before, it means that you can then see when you're planning an event all those sorts of files, and they're stored with the location. I can go in, I can see the calendar for the particular event, for the particular location, and so that will show me all the events that are happening in that location. Again, in this instance, because I've just created it, there aren't any events. And I can also create barcodes for the locations. Now, John didn't talk about this initially, but when you're using the AdamRMS app, you'll need to assign assets a location somewhere in the world. Now, obviously, you might have different rooms. So obviously, within Dixon Drama Studio, we might actually be storing some equipment in, I don't know, a cupboard. So in those cases, we will need to have a barcode for that particular cupboard. So what we want to do is we can create a location called storage cupboard. We can say that it's at this in the same location, so it's University of York, Uni of York, YO10 5DD, and then we can say that it's actually a sub-location of Dixon Drama Studio. And so you can see that it pops out as a storage cupboard there. This way, we can then assign our assets a particular location if they're being stored in a particular place. So it makes it really easy for people to find the assets that they're looking for. So then the final sort of thing to talk about as we're sort of managing projects as an overall level is project types. So when we come to create a project in a moment, you'll see that it asks us whether we're using a it'll ask us what sort of project type it is. Now we can custom define these for our business for different things, and we can say what sort of stuff do we want to be able to do with that project type. So you can have you can say that actually if we're doing an internal event, we don't need to be able to bill people, so we don't need the finance part of the project. If we want to have an internal event where actually it's at the pub, we don't necessarily need a venue. So I can add a project type called internal event, and we can remove the finance tab. Internal events probably don't need a crew assignment, for example. And I can also add a new one called social. So again, socials don't need finances, they don't need crew, they don't need a venue, they probably don't even need notes. It's just, and they don't need assets. So it's just, then we can just see that your membership can then see that there's a social going on, but actually it's not got any of those. So as we then come on to create a project, you can see that it's just asked us what project type we would like to set it to. So we will create a new project. I will need to change to our demo for the projects. So we can create a new project. We'll go for a full project for this one. You can select the project manager, and in this case, that's me. You can set the project name. In this case, we will call it Come From Away. and you can see that our project has now been created. Now, as you come down this sidebar, this is where our sort of main stuff that will need changing initially is. So you can see we can set a client. So in this case, we will set it to just a client called Musical Group that I've created. We can select the venue for that. So in this case, you can see I've got several that we've created for this business. So we'll set it to being in the Black Box Theatre, wherever that is. And then we can set the dates for the project. Now, there are two types of dates. There's dates and there's dates assets are in use. So a project might obviously run for slightly longer than the assets are in use, or the assets might be in use for slightly longer than the project runs. So in these instances, we want to be able to block out our crew with dates. So we can say that our crew will be needed for planning from Monday through to Friday. However, our assets are the events actually only actually being run from Wednesday through to Friday, and that's when our get-ins on the Wednesday and the events on the Thursday and our get-outs on the Friday. So actually the assets are only in use for 2 days. Obviously, if it's exactly the same, we can just copy the from project dates, and you can see that 25th to the 27th, sorry, 23rd to the 27th has now been copied to the project dates. Project can then have statuses as you follow through the life cycle. So you can say that a event has been targeted, a quote's been sent, it's been confirmed, it's been prepped, all the assets have gone out and they've been dispatched, they've been returned and so on. In this case, we'll just say that we are targeting the event, and you can see that the color changes as you get, well, the color will change as you go through. So once it's been confirmed, it will change to green, like that. We can add descriptions to events if we need to here. This is a fun show. And you can see that pops up just here as well. Comments are quite useful. So if your equipment team has received an email asking if there are particular requirements or whatever, you can add that in here. So we can add this is a test comment. And you can see that on this particular day I commented and then someone else can respond to me, and it goes like that. But there's also the new comment button down here, which does exactly the same thing as well. So then obviously, as we come onto this project, we will at some point want to add some assets to it because we need to take assets to our event. So there are a couple of ways that we can do this. The first is we've got these two. The first way is that we will look at this button here, which is the add all assets to project. So if you are taking your entire stock of inventory, which doesn't happen very often, but you might decide that you want to block all of it so that you've got all of it. This is quite useful if you're doing like a big pat testing job. So you've got a project for pat testing, and then you just add all of your assets to it because it doesn't actually matter. You can do that here. You can say yes, and it will add all the assets. The other way that you can do it is you go shopping. So we click this shopping cart here, and you can see that up here, the event is now come from away, and I'm shopping for come from away. If I go into the search assets, I can now see that I've got the DBR15, the Mac 700s, and the SQ5. So let's say I want the Mac 700s. I can click on these, and I can click the Add to Shopping Cart button here. Once it's yellow, it means it's been added to the project, like so. There are, obviously, John talked earlier about putting blocks on projects. You can see here that if there is a blocks on assets. John talked earlier about adding blocks to assets. You can see here that the asset is blocked. I can't add it to the project because it's broken. So I'll just have to add a different set of speakers there, like so. If I then come back into my project here, you can see that the assets and assets dispatch tabs have appeared. So you can see all of the different assets that I've added, and you can see their prices over on this side here. As John mentioned earlier, there are groups. So obviously here I've got a sound group. So if I had a bit of a sound package, I could just click the add to cart to the project. Obviously, as it said earlier, so as it said there, only some of them were able to be added because there was a project block. Sorry, there's a maintenance block on the DBR 15s there. But if I come back in here, we can see that some more of these have been added. So we've now got some XLR, and we've got another SQ5 on there as well. If I want to remove some assets for whatever reason, say I no longer want 3 XLRs, I only want 2, I can check the XLR that I want to remove, and I can just click the remove asset button there. And once it's done that, we can see that there's now only the 2 XLRs that were left. Obviously, sometimes you might want to discount particular items or all the items, so we can select them all up here, or we can select the 4 Martin Max 700s, and then we can press this button here and we can set a discount. So let's say we want to discount them by 50%. We can do that here. So you can see now that they've all got a 50% discount on them. So rather than being £600 for the week, they're now £300. And that's also been reflected in our billing when we go into the finance tab over here. We can also set custom prices. So say we've agreed with a client that actually we were going to rent the Max 700s, not for £300, but for £306. I can set the custom price with this button here. This overrides the normal price. So if I set I said £306 per mover. You can see that the price is £306, but we still got our 50% discount on, so it's been taken down to 153. So I would then need to remove the discount by setting it back to 100%. I'm sorry, I've given it 100% discount now. I should have set it to 0%, and I'll do that quickly. 0%. Like so. There we go, £306. So that's those. We can then swap assets out if we need to. So for example, if one of your DBR's 15s is broken, we can select one of those and we can replace it with a different asset of the same type. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so that will change that. And then we can also set a status for the asset. So that comes across to the asset dispatch page here. As your equipment team are getting assets or ready for a project, they can assign each one a status for this particular project. So we can say that the Max 700 has been picked. And so you can see it moves across. We can say it's then been prepped as we've tested that it still works. As we've put it in its flight case, we can say it's been tested. We can say it's been packed, and then we can say it's been dispatched to the client. And then obviously we've got a waiting check-in case opened as we come through, as it comes back into our warehouse. That's a pretty whistle-stop tour of how you can add assets to a project, and how you can add sort of discounts. Projects can then have files attached to them. So you can also create notes. So for example, we had a production meeting last week, and as you're going through, you can then edit your production meet. This is some notes from that meetings, and you can save that so that it's viewable, and then you can also download it as well so that anyone can see what sort of stuff you've been writing. Again, your business logo would appear up here, but we've not set one for this business. You can also upload just normal files or your camera. That's not a problem as well, and they just appear in here. As we then come on to the finance tab, we're going to skip invoices and quotes, and we'll come back to those in a moment. As we do this, come onto this tab, you can see that we've got our equipment total is currently £1,400. We can then add sales items. So for example, if we want to, I don't know, sell them some haze fluid, we've probably bought that off of Stage Depot or someone like that. We can sell them some haze fluid, and one bottle of haze fluid is about £30. So we can put that on there. And as we come back to the finance view, you can see now that we've got sales of £30. So our equipment's total is 1,400, but our overall total is £1,474 because we've got the extra £30 from haze fluid. If I then wanted to add additional hires, so sort of a sub hire, so for example from White Lights in London, White Lights, we can say that we've hired I don't know, more movers. I can hire those for £500 or £500 for the week. And again, all that will just appear on there. Again, that's £500, and I can add as many sub hires and sales as I like. I can also add staff costs, so that the staff costs are in this case from TechSoc themselves, and I can add the staff costs of I don't know, £20 an hour, £20 per hour, and I can add the amount per hour, and I can times that by the number of hours that we used. So in this case, let's say 5. And you can see that the quantity is 5. TechSoc has used, it's at £20 an hour. So the amount is £20 and the total has come to £100 because that's 20 times 5. And again, that's popped up into our overview. When we come back, as we come back to the invoices and the note and quotes, we can create invoices for the invoice. Sorry, we can create invoices to bill the client. That's what I'm trying to say. So you can see that it's very similar. You can see that as we talked about earlier, the addresses for the society, or the client in this case, has popped up here. The address for the business has popped in here. In this case, it's just the business is called Project Demo, and the address for the venue would pop in here, but we've not set an address for the Black Box Theatre. You can see the value that we've estimate for how much all of the assets that are going out on this gig are worth and how much they all weigh, along with the collection and delivery time. Our reference bit here is a unique reference number for each event. That's quite useful for when the client is paying you. You can then refer this back to the invoice, so you know which clients are paid for which events. You can then see that you've got the grand total outstanding, and we've got our equipment on this page, and we've got our our additional hires, our sales, and our staff costs here. If I go back onto the project, you can see that it's appeared here, and I can download it here. I can create a quote in exactly the same way, and it just comes up with quotation. Once a client has paid, if I show you just actually first, if I show you the client's view, like we saw earlier, you can see that now he says musical group. Why is it not popped up? Okay. So normally it pops up to pay. I'm not sure why it's not in this instance, but once it's set up, I think it's because it's just a testing instance on this testing business, and it's not set up correctly. But it would normally pop up with your with how much the a client owes you. Once they pay a little bit of money, whether that's the full amount or part of it, it's because it is James. It's because the project has been closed, which is why it's not popping up on here. We can look at that later. Once the payment has been received, you can add a payment to the total that they've paid. So in this case, they've paid us a balance of £500 via bank transfer. You can see that we've payment received to date. They've paid £500, but they still owe us the full amount. So we can then do, if they paid us another bank transfer of £1,500, you can see that then zeroes out their outstanding balance, and the payments received pop up here. Finally, to sort of finish off how projects work, we will look briefly at sub-projects. So when you're doing a large event like Come From Way, for example, you will probably end up with sort of several sort of mini events as part of that. For example, the SITS probe. Now, obviously, they're still related to this event, but they're not actually part of the main actual production week. So in this case, we can go click on the little down arrow here, and we can create a new sub project. We can select what type of project is it. Is it a full event with billing, or is it an internal event like we've defined earlier? We'll say it's a full project, so we can say that it's a SITS probe. And you can see now that on our sidebar, we've now got the main event here, and we've got the SITS probe here. I can then set a different set of dates for the SITS probe. I can have all different sorts of assets as well. And I can check out the different sorts of assets as well on here. So that's how you would do sort of smaller sort of sub events, so to speak. I think John is now going to talk a little bit about crew recruitment and how that works.
Yep. Let me bring up my screen share again. So another powerful feature of where is it? Well, that one. Cool. Another powerful feature of projects is that you can track what crew you're expecting on there within the project. So I've gone on to a different business here, and I've just got a generic project here that's crewed. There are two ways that you can add crew to your project. Both ways, it requires your crew to have an account on AdamRMS so that they can be tracked through, or you can just add their names, but you won't be able to track their project and get their email as easily. So first of all, I've come to the crew tab of our project, and I'm going to manually add some crew through here. This top bar here is your people that you've got in your business. So we've got two people here. We've got Alexander Hamilton and myself. I'm a project manager, but I'm going to be the lighting designer of this show as well. So I'm going to put my name in there and then say lighting designer. And I'm just going to add myself there, and that's added me to the crew. What that'll then do is it will have sent an email to my email address, and it will add that to my personal calendar that we looked at earlier, so that's syncing with my calendar. Let's say that I'm no longer the lighting designer, I'm just the lighting operator. I can change the role there. I can also add a comment to each role. This is something like is the first aider, so that we know this person's first aider. And what it's done there is just given me an information there, and it tells me the additional information about the person. If the person you're trying to add doesn't have an email address, we can just put in their name here. So Rob's not in this business, so I'm just going to add his name. It's very clear that that's just the name of a person. He's going to be my sound operator. And as you can see, I can link through to my user page here, but I can't link Rob through because he's not a member of the business. The other way that you can do add increased projects is through crew recruitment. Crew recruitment is a way for you to say, well, I have these positions available. Are you interested? Would you like to do them? And you can either do recruitment of applications that instantly get accepted, or you can do a proper application process with multiple questions that people might have to answer. So this crewed project has two roles available for crew recruitment. We have some stage crew and we have our drum revolve operator. Stage crew, we just need as many people as possible to get involved, so that we've got a healthy stage crew, and we're saying so this will be anyone can just apply for the role application. Each vacancy or role for your project is made up of the name of the role, a bit about what the job actually is, and any specific information you're expecting about a person. Person specification might include stuff like you need a proper qualification for this because you'll be doing heavy machinery, you'll be working at heights, so you need rigging gear, or you might just say no experience necessary, pop along, we just want you to get involved. You should set a deadline for your application so that people know when you're expecting to make decisions. And then roles available is how many of these roles do you need? When you create an application, you can set it so that the results, the applications are only visible to the project manager of the project. This might be that you've got a particularly contentious role that you don't really want information being public, or you're collecting a lot of personal information about someone just so that that information doesn't spread far. However, it is worth noting that the applications are linked to the project manager, not the user. So if you change the project manager of a project, the new project manager will be able to see the application. This is said to users when they sign up, which we'll look at in a minute. Our first come first served feature allows you to just instantly sign up for the role and be given it. And this is what I mean by saying we just need as many crew as possible. It will automatically close the role once you've got all of your applied roles available as well. So you don't need to worry about any of that. Next up, we have where is this available? So there are two places where we would list crew vacancies. There is the AdamRMS internal vacancies list, and then AdamRMS also has a number of public site view, which we might look at later on, where you can list all of your applications. Let's look at the crew vacancies list now. So if your user has permissions, there is a crew vacancies page. This gives you an overview of all of the roles that are currently available for you to apply to. There's two parts to it. First of all, you can find out more information about the role, and this includes things like description, person specification. And if I look at this other role, it's got more information about the requirements of the role. And then I can apply. So an application is quite simple generally. It all, as you're logged in already, it will automatically fill in your name and your default email address. And then you can optionally put a phone number in there. If you wanted to include any file attachments, like if you're wanting to collect design decisions, you can add files there. And then there's just a generic comments box there that you can do. As I said before, the stage crew role is a application and you get it role. So currently we have 5 places remaining. If I apply, we can see that we've submitted it. And then already that place has disappeared. That's because this is a first come first served project. So if I go back to our project now, we can see that I've been added as stage crew automatically. The other way of doing applications is one where the project manager has to look through the applications and choose someone and reject the other applicants. This drug revolver operator vacancy has an additional question that we've set up. This is just to see, have you got any experience? Have you got any qualifications? Are you allowed to do this safely in this case? And these questions can be as long and as many of them as you want. The rest of the form is exactly the same. I'm just going to leave this blank just because I'm going to be helpful to myself and just click apply. As we can see, we've submitted it, but this time the places remained hasn't gone down. That's because we've only applied to it. If we now go back to our view of everything, we can see that our stage crew has our places filled as 1 with our 1 application because that one's automatically there. But then our drum revolver operator, we can see is we've got 1 application, but it's not automatically been assigned because we need to do that. If we go into our applications, we can see that we've got who's applied, and then we can read their application here. So I helpfully didn't put any comments in there. So this is not a great application. What I'm going to do, I'm going to reject this one because it's not very good, and there's no information provided that we need. When you reject someone, it'll let them. It will email them automatically to say you've not got this position, and there's an opportunity for you to say why they've not got it. Not a good application. Obviously, you'd not normally be as blunt as that, but as it's to me, it doesn't make any difference at all. I've rejected their application and it's now an unsuccessful application. That means we've not filled this place yet, so someone else can apply to the role and try and get the crew for that. We've had our 1 application, but it's still not filled. Let's say that we wanted to add a stage manager to this role. We can add a new role at the top there, and you can see it's the same form with our edit form. So we can add all the same information here. So stage manager manages the stage. I'm obviously not filling that in as detailed as we'd normally recommend you do. Deadlines are optional, although they are heavily recommended. So I'm going to set this one to being next Friday at midnight. And there's 1 stage manager role available. Let's make these applications available to everyone to see because we don't really mind if everyone sees it. It makes it easier for collaboration to see how many applications there are. And we jumped away when we looked at crew vacancies list to talk about that. The next thing to look at is the limit visibility. This allows us to say, right, well, only this user group is allowed to see these roles, and we'll look at user groups a bit later on to explain what this means in more detail. And then we've got our final options here are collecting phone numbers so that you can get that field, the file applications that you saw in the actual application, and then we can add as many additional questions as we want to say get more information about people, and they can either be long text so you can put lots of text in or just short text box answers. Once we've done all that, we can just click save, and that's created our new application. You'll notice here that these two roles we've had applications for, but our new one we haven't. You can only delete an advertised role if you haven't had any applications for it. You can, however, hide a role from the public lists. So from our career vacancies, if we refresh this now, we see we've got stage manager. If we've changed our mind and say, actually, no, we don't want to advertise this anymore, to hide an application, all we need to do is remove its visibility. And there we can see it's hidden from our application list. And if we view the application list, it's disappeared from there. Cool. That is discussing career recruitment. And that kind of wraps up our look at projects. Anybody got any questions about projects? Anybody would like us to go into more detail about projects? Awesome. Right, I'm going to talk about training, and then Rob will talk about some other bits and bobs. Another feature of AdamRMS is the training module. This gives you the opportunity to provide guidance to your to members of the business. You might have specific training that they need to do before they can do events. You might just have guides on how to use specific equipment and that sort of thing. In this demo business, we've got a training section here. And we've got a sample module already here. So this one's a tour of the cables that you might use in day-to-day. So this is quite an introductory one, but it's useful to have as a one-stop shop for information. By default, you'll be able to see just the module list of a business, and then we'll be able to click on Work on Module to start going through our module. Every every training module has a number of steps to it, and the first one is always an introduction to say what's going to happen in here. So these are our learning objectives for this module. And we can step through each one by clicking Mark as complete. Now, I've copied this from another AdamRMS business, so the images haven't copied across. But there are two types of steps for a training module. You can either have text-based ones, so this one's a text-based one where you can add images as well as you go through, and people can just read through and refer to this at their own rate. Or you can have YouTube videos as the other type. So we've got all our information here, and this would ideally have information, all the images with it. I've got to copy them across, so we'll mark that one as complete. And then this next one is about how we coil cables properly, and this is just an embedding of a YouTube video. This allows you to point guidance in the right direction, and you might use YouTube videos as your way to do training with physical equipment, like if you have a specific course for your movers, you might have a video course on that, and you can include that as an RMS module by providing links to each video. We've now going to mark this as complete, and therefore we've finished this module, and here's our 3 steps. At any point we can step back through and go see, well, I want to just remind myself of that step of this module, and step back through. And then we've finished everything there. When we go back to our module list, we can see that we've now completed this module. Before it said it was not started. And if we'd looked at here in the middle of doing it, it would say it's in progress. There was also an estimation on the amount of time that it takes to do, and a listing of when the module was created. If you have the permissions, you're able to see who in your business has completed this. So as you can see, we've just completed it. We can see the vague timestamps that we've done, so that you can just check that people aren't just spam clicking through the module. You can check that they're taking reasonable amount of time to do the training. The module that we just looked at there is what's called an online only module. This is where you've got a list of information, and that's everything that you want to do to teach that module. Another type of module is a physical one. These are ones where these take place physically in person, and then you are certified by whoever's leading the training to say you've completed this module. This is really useful if you're more of a practical based business where you want to just make sure that they've done physical practical trainings. But then a training module can have both. So a hybrid type of module is where they've got a bit of online to do, and then they have to do a physical bit to get certified at the end. So what we're going to do, let's create a hybrid training module. Let's call it using light. All of these boxes are visible to all your users when it's published. So let's set a description of this is how lighting, and the learning objectives are there, so you can say what's the point of this. The step here we have is publish it. So you may not want to check this straight away. You may want to keep this as a draft module. I'm going to keep it as published for now, just so it's automatically put there. And then we can optionally set a thumbnail. So our cable one had this mess of cables, and we can set a thumbnail there. Once you've gone into your module, you can see it's, we'll need to go to publish modules there, because by default it goes to draft modules after you created it. You can see we've got our new module here. We can firstly go back and edit it. So there's all the information again. And then the next thing we want to do is edit the module steps. So as we said before, the first step is always an introduction, which includes the learning objectives. We can change what this content is at the bottom here. And we can also keep an internal note to say why this is here, or what the YouTube video is if we're linking YouTube video. We can also do how long this step should take to complete, so that the user has an overview of how long they should put aside to doing this training module. We're going to create a new step now, and this is our new step. Every step obviously needs a title. I'm going to do a step on what DMX is, and I'm just going to get the video, generic DMX, what is DMX video, so that I can use that one to embed in this tutorial. We're going to do this one as a type YouTube video. And I know that this video is 3 minutes long, so we can set the completion time as around 3 minutes. And then I'm going to set the internal note to a video. When I've created that step, it will appear there, and steps are by default not published. This means that this won't appear to people completing the training module. This is because you've not said it's finished yet. As we said that this is a YouTube video, all we're getting is a YouTube video code entry box here. The entry box is the last set of characters when you go to the YouTube review page. Let's copy this one over. So for this URL here, it's these final characters here after the equals. You can also get this by going to the YouTube share page. So if I pop the end of the code there, I did not copy that bit, just those characters there, and click save, what we can see is that's embedded our video in the view. We've not published it yet, so if I quickly go back and publish it, so it's visible to all users, we can then see it's published. And then when we go back to the training module, we can work on this module as we did before. We've got our introduction slide, and then we've got our video slide, and we can watch the video and mark it as complete. As this is a hybrid module, you can also see that it says here this module requires certification. So because we've got that bit, we can now see that we're not certified, but we have completed the training module. To certify what we're doing, we just need to go to our user list, and then we can see that we've got this certified button here. We can see that I've completed the module, And now I'm going to certify. You can add a comment to the certification to say when it was completed. Let's say we did it today. And then we can see that we've got when it was certified, and then there's our certification comment. At any point, you can also revoke your certifications and you can recertify if you require it to be done regularly. Cool. That is an introduction to training modules. I'm going to hand back over to Rob to discuss the content management system of AdamRMS.
Yes, so let me share my screen. Cool. So obviously, as your business develops, you're going to want some form of internal documentation. Likewise, you might also want to make your assets public and have a bit of a website and a web presence online. So for this, the RMS, it supports a content management system, or a type of it. That's accessible if you've got permissions in the business CMS pages. So you can see here, I've got a page that's already been created. It's called test page, and you can see that that's in my sidebar here. If I open it out, you can see it's just an untitled card with a small table in it. You can see all the URLs that it's available at, and you can see it's also public on the internet for anyone to view. So we'll create a test page, and then we'll talk through some of the different features of that. So if I create a page, let's call it, I don't know, documentation. We can give it a description, how to do things. And we can also give it a bit of an icon, depending on what we want, and we can filter that. So if I want it as I don't know, I think there is a training emoji. We'll give it a train icon. We can say whether it's accessible on the public site. I'll come back to public sites in a moment. So for now, we'll just uncheck that, and we can state whether it's viewable in the public navigation. That's this pane over here. So we'll say yes, we can view it there. I can then limit the visibility to certain user groups. So in this case, I only want our admin team and our project management team to be able to view this, but I don't want to be doing that. Apologies, I said that this is where the navigation menu. This is still to the public sites. The navigation menu here is this button here. So if you want it to appear on the sidebar for your normal users, you would click that. We can then say if it's a subpage. For now, we won't say it's a subpage. We'll just create the page like so. So you can now see that documentation has appeared in my sidebar, and you can see that for documentation, only AdamRMS users with a role of administrator or project manager can actually view this page. We've got the URL. We can then edit those settings again if we want to, so we can add it to the public site, which we'll do in a moment. But we can then go into the page by clicking this button here, and we can edit it. So you can see this is a very blank page right now. So we can click add card. So let's say we just want to add some random text. We can add that. We can then click the edit button, and we can add pictures at the top here. And we can then add some, this is some docs here. I can change this card to have a title, so we can give it a title to just I don't know, Mac 700 docs. I can give it a color, and I can also change how it sort of is styled as well, and things like that. I can delete this with a card with the bin here, and I can also make it bigger and smaller, like so, on the page. I can add another card, custom card, so some more text, with a more text. I can make this one green, and we'll access. And I can give it a name of speaker docs, like so. I can then also make these bigger, and you can see as it gets too big, it goes over multiple lines. I can then, if I select the thing, the title here, I can then move them around, so I can put them in a different order, and do all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff like that. When I'm adding the cards, obviously you've got custom cards, that's just random text. I can also add various different types of widgets to pages. So I could add a calendar if I wanted. So you can see that that's now appeared, and I can make that smaller and bigger, and I've got an event in there. I'll get rid of that one. I can also add various different sort of asset totals and different things like that on the page as well. So if I save this, I can add a revision text. So I can say that this add some basic content, and that is now saved. And so if I go to documentation here, you can see that our content has been created. If I then click on this button here, you can see the number of times each user has viewed the page, and you can also see when they last accessed the page. You can also see sort of how many times it was viewed over the last week, month, and all sort of all time. It's quite useful just to see, ensure that users have actually been reading your documentation or whatever content that you've created. Now let's say that within the documentation, I want a page, a sub-page, so to speak. Then I can create a new page, and I can say our Hazer has particular docs that warrants its own page. So I can say smoke. Well, actually, I don't think that's an emoji. We'll just set it as an emoji for the sun. I can then say it's a sub page of documentation. I still want it to show in the navigation menu, and I still want it to be just our administrator, our project team, and our warehouse. I can't remember what we said earlier, but we'll just limit it to a few different roles. And you can see now, if I go onto this one and refresh it, you can see. Oh, click too soon. You can see that we now have our Haze docs has popped out here. We can add, we can click edit and add the content that we want. To then sort of come onto the public site. So when you get an instance or a business on AdamRMS, you can have a site that is open to the public that anyone can see. Now, in this instance, it is at training. We've put it at training.johnterry.me. Not training. It's apologies. It is public. Yeah. You can see. So you can see that we've got some of our pages. On the public site, you can view the assets in just the same way that you were on in the RMS. These settings can be changed, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But we can also define custom pages. So you can see that this page is test page is public on the internet, and so you can see that it's got a URL for it on here. So you can click test page, and that's got our thing there, all of our random table. If I want to make the documentation page public to the internet, oh, wrong button, I clicked the wrong one. I can click on the little cog here when it loads. There we go. And I can click accessible on the public site and show in the navigation menu on there. And now if I refresh this page, you can see that the documentation has appeared in our sidebar, and we've got the Mac 700 docs for and the untitled card and the speaker docs as well there. We can then go in, we can change the public site settings. By coming in here, we can enable it and disable it if we don't want it to be accessible. We can show different things. So we can say that actually we don't want the assets to be searchable, we don't want the prices to be viewable, but we do want sort of asset notes and descriptions to be viewable. We can add different sorts of footers and custom contact information. We can add a header image that we've not set it, but that would appear at the top up here. We can add some content to our home page. That's just if I go back to our home. You can see here we've got welcome to Cherry's Theatrical Chandeliers, and that's all here. And we can also provide publicly downloadable files so that if, for example, you have particular forms that you need clients to fill out, you can put that on here as well. Then to finish off CMS pages in general, that's kind of the public site, but you can then have custom, you can then set a CMS page to a dashboard. So for example, let's say that your equipment team would like to know what maintenance jobs have been assigned to them on any particular given day, and you want it to be accessible. Sorry, I'll start that again. So let's say you want your equipment team to be able to view the maintenance jobs that they have assigned to them when they log in. Now we can do that by viewing the dashboard currently. But let's say we also, for example, you can see here we've got outstanding maintenance jobs and my maintenance jobs. But actually, as an equipment team member, I don't actually need all of this information. I don't care that we've used up 2.5 megabytes of the storage. So we can then create a custom page for them by assigning a CMS page to the dashboard. So if we create a page, so equipment team and team dashboard, we can then select an icon for it, but it's not overly used. We don't want it public and we don't want it to show in the navigation. So if we create that, we can then go and edit it. And we can create a card and we can say, okay, we just want the maintenance jobs, my maintenance jobs here. And we can do that there. And then we save the add maintenance jobs. Actually, did that add? Hold on. My maintenance jobs. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It did add. You've just not got any maintenance jobs.
Oh, that'll be why.
You want now.
Thank you. And so we can add a revision to that. Content. And then if we go back to our CMS portal here on the CMS pages, we can then click on the custom dashboards button here. And you can see that we can set custom dashboards, so we can set a page for each of the users. Now, I think I'm a administrator, so if I set the page to the administrator's custom dashboard to the equipment team dashboard, in this example, I can now go to dashboard, And you can see that my dashboard has changed, and you've got this message here, and you can see that I've just got a test job that John's just created for me there. That kind of is all of the CMS pages. Does anyone have any questions about that? Or otherwise we'll move on to just looking at some sort of general management of the RMS. Okay, doesn't look like it. I will move on. So obviously, as you're managing the RMS, there are some basic sort of settings that need to be changed. So not very regularly, but you need to be aware of them. So there's things, these are to do with the business settings. So we can change the name of the business. In this case, it's Cherry's Theatrical Chandelier. And we can change our email address, our phone number, our website details. We can set a logo. We can set email headers. We can set the quotation footers and invoice footers. We can add a cable length, color chart. So I can add a 5-meter cable and set that to be a red and save that. We can add we can customize the statuses for assets and their life cycle, and we can sort of also look at week dates, which is useful for university terms, and that appears on the calendars. You can also then customize what users have got permissions. So you can see that here we've got all these different user roles, and different users can do different things by just ticking the boxes. And we can add in a new role group in here. So I don't know, we've got a user, we could have our clients on here if we really wanted. So we'll add a client and we'll let them just view projects. That's all we want our client to be able to do. So view projects is there, and so we can add our client onto there. Once we've got different roles, obviously people might move around your business. So we can come into users and we can say that John no longer needs to be a user. He can just be he's actually been promoted and he's now an administrator. So we can now see that John is an administrator and he now has permission to do all the things the administrator does, which in this case is pretty much everything. Sometimes though, users might leave the business or they might disappear for whatever reason. So in these cases, you can archive a user and you can also delete a user as well. And that removes their access to the business. Just be aware, if you archive a user, they won't be able to, sorry, if you delete a user, they may be able to rejoin with the sign-up code if you've already deleted them and your sign-up codes are public. Talking of sign-up codes, if you, as John obviously showed how you would join a business at the start of this webinar, but you can create sign-up codes here, and you can allow them to be used. So we can add the code itself. So if I want freshers 21, what role will they be given? They can be given a role of crew. And you can select what user group they get added to, and you can select whether it's enabled or disabled. This is particularly useful, all of it, for Freshers Fair, because you can get your members to join the RMS and they can just use the sign-up code, so you don't need to constantly add them to the business. I think that's most of the sort of business management side of stuff. I think John's now going to look at the different sorts of workflows.
Yeah. So I'll head back to the permissions view that we had before. Just break everything. I will just talk about bringing all of those features together. A lot of a lot of features there that we've just kind of looked at in isolation. But as you can see from this view, there are a wide range of other different ways that you can use the platform to suit your specific needs. Throughout the RMS, there's a whole range of permissions and you can go quite in detail about what an individual user group can access, depending on what you need them to be able to do. So let's take the warehouse team, for example. In this business, they are responsible for managing our assets and also preparing and getting ready for dispatch for our assets. So they're responsible for managing assets, therefore they need to be able to access all of our asset permissions. They also need to be able to view projects because they need to be able to change asset statuses within it, add notes to a project because they might want to say, we've had to change this slightly, just to let you know, here's the list of things that we've changed. And then down in finance, they also need to be able to change the status of an individual asset as well. They don't need to do anything else, so their view is going to be relatively limited in the scheme of things. Oh no, sorry, they also handle all the maintenance of our assets. They get access to the full maintenance stuff. And we're giving them access to custom categories, which are categories for the assets. Everyone in the business, we've given access to training because we want them to be able to do their training modules. And these are all asset related as well. But we don't want them to have full access to user management. And as you can see, you can spend a lot of time going through all of the permissions that are available there. The default role you have is the administrator role, which has access to everything. If I change the permission of this user account, so I'm going to go back into users, and then I'm going to downgrade myself to being part of the warehouse team, what we can see is I can still access users, but I can't change my role back up. But my view has changed to being, I can view projects over here, but I can't change any of the details about them. I'm only here to make sure that the assets are in the right place. I can view all the assets and I can change the status of them. There we go, I've set that one to being picked. And then let's say they've all been prepped, so I can change the status to being dispatched. I don't need to worry about changing things like the dates or the information about the project because my project manager group will have already done that for me. I can create invoice and quotes so that I've got a list of information for me to use, but I don't need to access finance and that sort of thing because that's not in my job to do. I can access all of the assets in this role, as we discussed, and I can do anything with the assets section. And I can also access my training, so I can do my modules, although there aren't any in this instance. The workflow that you use it will be very tailored to your individual businesses. So the wide range of options that are there. For example, I've got my project manager role here. I've now changed to becoming a project manager for the business. As you can see, we've lost a lot of information about assets. I can still find assets because that's the default for the RMS. Everyone can find all the assets, but that's really useful. But now I can fully change the project information, including clients and that sort of thing, and I can add new clients and locations because I'll need to be able to do that if I'm meeting a client for the first time. I can also create project types because I might be doing something really, really strange and might need a custom type to make it work. I can access finance as a project manager because I need to be able to see what's going on with it, but I don't need to be able to actually set anything because we've got the finance team to manage that for us. And if I jump over to becoming the finance team now, just update my permissions again and refresh the page, what we can see is I can see the finance team can see a lot of information, but they can't change very much because they don't need to. They just need to be able to add payments received and track things like payments received in the payments ledger here. So that was just a couple of our permissions that we've set up in there. And as you can see, the views can change very, very heavily depending on what permissions you need to have for your business to work best. And as Rob showed before, you can add more permissions very easily, more roles very easily just by adding a new role group and getting it just right for your team. You can also add a role that is only applying to one person if you want to give them a different role within a team, and add their permissions that way. In practice, you probably will end up not needing as many role groups as this. This would be for quite a big business that's got fine-grained control over who can do what. Whereas for York's TechSoc, we have 4 user groups. We have the administrator user group, the committee user group, and then, 3, and the crew user group. The crew being, they can do quite a lot still on the platform because we want them to be able to do things like maintenance jobs, adding things to projects and keeping track of that sort of thing. And then our committee group is the ones that create all the projects. So it really does depend on what works best for your business, and you have full control over that. Right, I think that brings us towards the end of the AdamRMS webinar. There are 2 more things for us to point out. I'll share that again, apologies. Where can you go for more information about how the AdamRMS works, or if you've got problems or you want to report new features that you think would be useful for the platform? The easiest way to do it is by using AdamRMS's support page that everyone can access at any time. This is here so that you can contact AdamRMS Support. And there's a bit about the RMS here. And you can create new tickets to the support team, and they will get back to you as soon as possible. If it's particularly urgent, please bear in mind that there may be a bit of a delay in response. The other place that you can go for more information is the AdamRMS website. So that's adam-rms.com. And there you've got full information depending on what you want to find out. And the user guide here takes you through everything we've discussed today, with images of different projects and that sort of thing, and explains things like what the different colors for projects mean. How do you create training modules if you've got that there. We've also taken this webinar and we're going to be putting it online, and that will be available through this help guide once we've uploaded that and got it all changed. Your support information is also on the website there. So that brings us to the end. Thank you for joining us today, and hopefully this has been useful for you. If you do have any more things that you'd like to get involved with, please contact support and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.